Make sure you watch this carefully, especially if you live in Nigeria, or in a country that loves Christmas and New Year celebrations so much. In Nigeria, Christmas is a big celebration. Everyone is happy, people cook delicious food, share gifts and visit loved ones. The streets are noisy with laughter, music and fireworks. It is a time for love and sharing. Anita was in her kitchen early that morning. She was cooking rice and stew. The stew was red and thick, and it smelled so good there were big pieces of meat in it. The smell filled the house. Anita smiled as she stirred the pot. Today was Christmas, and she wanted to share some food with her close friend. Mrs. Chiney Ho, Anita called her son who was playing with his new toy in the living room. Yes, Mama Ho, replied running to her. Anita packed the food carefully into a bowl. She added extra stew and made sure there was plenty of meat. She wanted her friend to feel special. Then, she covered the bowl and placed it in a plastic bag. Take this food to Mrs. Chiney, she said, handing the bag to Ho. Tell her I said, Merry Christmas. Ho's face lit up with a big smile. He was very happy in Nigeria when a mother sends her child to deliver food on Christmas. It is a joyful thing. Ho knew he would not come back empty-handed. Mrs. Chiney would give him something, a gift. Mama, I will deliver it now, Ho said. He grabbed the bag and ran outside. Be careful, don't pour it, Anita called after him, but who chased was already gone. The sun was shining, and the streets were full of life. Children were playing with their toys. Some were lighting fireworks. People were dressed in colorful clothes. The whole neighborhood smelled Christmas cooking. Hoo-ha felt so proud walking through the street with the bag of food. Hoo, where are you going? One of his friends shouted to deliver food. Hoo shouted back, smiling. His friends cheered for him. They knew how exciting it was to deliver food on Christmas. Hoo waved at them and kept walking. His heart was full of happiness. Hoo was very happy as he reached Mrs. Cha's house. He stood in front of the door, fixed his shirt, and checked that the food was still neat. Then smiling widely, he knocked on the door. The door opened and there was Mrs. Chiney. She smiled at, Ho, you are here, she said warmly. Merry Christmas, Ma Ho, said with a big smile. He handed the bag of food to her carefully like it was a treasure. Wow, your mom sent this to me, she asked, opening the bag a little. Thank you so much. Help me thank her. When you get home, yes, Ma Ho, Chase said quickly. He stood still, smiling, waiting for what would come next. Then she said the words Hoo was waiting for. Wait. I have something for you. He said, Come here, Ho. Stepped forward quickly, but she did not give him the money right away. Instead, she used the money to make a small circle around his head 3 times. Ho didn't mind, he just kept smiling. He didn't care what she did as long as she gave him the money. Finally, she gave it to him. Here you go, my boy. Use it to buy something nice, she said, with a laugh. Thank you, Ma, Ho said happily. He held the money tightly in his hand and looked at it to others. 50 naira might be small, but to Ho, it was like gold. He was already thinking of what to buy. Maybe sweets, biscuits, or even a small toy? Ho waved goodbye to Mrs. Chin and walked back home. His heart was full of joy. He felt very lucky. His feet felt light as he walked, and he smiled the whole way. The streets were still full of noise. Children played with toys. Fireworks lit up the sky. As he got close to his house, Ho felt even more excited. He started running. The cool breeze touched his face. He laughed out loud. Chase skipped happily down the road, holding his 50 naira tightly in his hand. He couldn't wait to tell his mother about the gift. But as he left, something dark was happening behind him at the door. Mrs. Chiney watched Ho leave. Her kind smile was gone now. Her face was angry. Useless child with a useless mother. She said under her breath, That money, your mother forced me to pay back. She will spend it on sickness. She shook her head, hissed, and shut the door with a loud bang. To Anita. Mrs. Chiney was her close friend. They shared food, talked often, and helped each other. Anita trusted her, but Anita did not know the truth. She did not know that her friend was secretly angry with her. That anger had been hidden for a long time, waiting to explode. A long time ago, Anita helped Chene by landing her 200, and after her success of getting pregnant on her own, whereas men teaching her about psychology and mental health. Only put, Gina, 0 Naira Cheney had promised to pay it back soon, but when the time came, she didn't. Anita waited patiently. At first, she believed in helping friends and didn't want to rush her. Maybe she's having a hard time, Anita thought. But weeks passed, then months, and still Chin didn't pay the money. Anita started to worry. She needed the money for her own family. Anita began to remind her, but she did it gently. Sister Chin, please don't forget the money I loaned you. I need it back soon. But every time Chin gave in, bodily movements. My sister. Things are hard right now, please give me more time, or I just had to pay for something urgent. I will pay you next week. Anita was patient. She trusted her friend and didn't want to fight. She even extended the time for Chene to pay back, but still no money came. Months passed, and Anita couldn't stay silent anymore. She decided to speak up. One day Anita said firmly, Sister Chene, it's not fair. I helped you when you needed it, but now you're refusing to pay me back. I have been kind, but this is too much. That small argument changed everything. Chingwei finally paid the 200, Naira. But she wasn't happy about it. As she handed the money back, her heart was burning with anger. She dared Sir demand money for me after all I've done for her, she thought to herself. Anita thought the argument was over. She believed they had made peace. She tried her best to fix the friendship. Anita thought everything was fine again, but Chene was not fine inside her heart. She was still angry. She felt insulted by the argument and couldn't forgive Anita, even though Anita smiled, held her chinny, kept the anger in her heart. I will never forget what she did to me, Chinny thought. I will wait for the right time to pay her back. Now, on Christmas Day, Anita sent Ho to deliver food to her friend. Anita thought Chin would be happy and thankful, but Chinny was smiling on the outside while hiding her bitterness inside. She acts like she's better than me, Chingay muttered after Ho left. She brought food to my house, but I will teach her a lesson. She doesn't know what's coming inside her house. People with Parkinson's disease are often inside their house. Hosts Chingay sat down, her mind full of bad thoughts. Anita, on the other hand, was at home happy and waiting for Hu to return. She had no idea that her friend had planted an EV seed on her son. She didn't know that the peace she thought they had was a lie. Hooch came home smiling. He was very happy in his hand. He held the 50 naira that Mrs. Chin had given him as soon as he entered the house. He ran to his mother. "Mama! See?" he said proudly, showing her the money. Anita looked at her son and smiled at she. Was happy he delivered the food safely, and even came back with a G to her. This was normal. Mrs. Chin was her good friend, so there was no reason to worry. "Good boy," she said with a nod. "You can use it." Hearing this, Ho's happiness grew even more. He felt like the luckiest boy in the world. After showing his mother the money, Hoa sat down to eat a big plate of rice stew and chicken. He enjoyed every bite, feeling full and excited about the rest of the day. Later that afternoon, Ho decided to use the money to buy sweets. He went to the small shop near their house and picked his favorite. He put the sweets in his pocket, planning to eat them when he went out with his friends on Christmas Day. Many children visited loved ones, played together, and enjoyed the celebration. Hooch couldn't wait when his friends arrived. Hope quickly changed into his new Christmas clothes. He loved his new outfit and felt proud wearing it. Before leaving, he unwrapped one of the sweets. And all of them cried as they met Ho in the parking lot. Put it in his mouth. As he started to chew, something felt wrong. "Mama, my stomach is paining me," Hoa said, holding his belly. "Drop the sweet," Anita replied. "You eat too many sweet things, that's why your stomach hurts. Just rest for a while." But the pain didn't stop Mama. "I'm having a headache," Hu said weakly. Anita frowned, thinking he was exaggerating. "Hu, stop this. If you don't want to go out with your friends, just rest. You'll feel better soon." Mama put the theater back in, but said, "Haven't you read the newspapers of late?" Leaned against the wall. "Mama, my eyes are turning. Sotoshiki ayoshabi. Madoro aboro." "Me," he said. Anita turned to look at him, and her heart stopped. She noticed something strange. Ho's eyes were blood red. "Ai, come quickly," she shouted, calling her husband who was sitting in the living room watching TV. Ai ran into the room when he heard Anita's panicked voice. When he saw Ho, his face changed. Ho's body was shaking uncontrollably, his arms and legs jerked, and his eyes rolled back into his head. Ho, Anita screamed, grabbing her son. He didn't respond. His body kept shaking. Ai, quickly, grabbed his car keys. "We need to get him to the hospital right now," he shouted. They carried Hu to the car. Anita held him tightly in her arms, tears streaming down her face. A drove as fast as he could, the car bouncing over the rough road. Hu's body kept shaking and his breathing was shallow. The joyful Christmas day had turned into a nightmare. Anita's heart was pounding with fear. She had no idea what was wrong with her son, or that something very dark was behind his sudden sickness. When Anita and Eze reached the hospital, the doctors tried their best to help Eze. They gave him medicine, checked his heartbeat, and gave him oxygen, but nothing worked. Instead of getting better, Eze kept worse. His body kept shaking, and he was breathing very slowly. After some time, the doctor came out to see Eze Manita. His face was serious, and his voice was low. "I have never seen a case like this before," the doctor said. "It does not look like a normal sickness." "I think you should pray," Anita was shocked. She looked at the doctor and said, "Pray, my son needs immediate medical attention." She and Eze decided to take Eze to another hospital. They carried him back to the car and rushed to the new hospital, hoping the doctors there could save him. When they reached the second hospital, the doctors took Uche, and right away, Anita stayed outside, worried and crying. She then realized they didn't have much money left. Anita decided to go back home, quickly, to get more money. She left the hospital and hurried home. When she got there, she started searching for the little money they had left, but as she was about to leave, someone knocked on the door. It was Chinny. Chinny stood at the door, smiling like everything was fine. "Hello, my friend," she said. "This one you were rushing? Is something wrong?" Anita looked at her, surprised. "Good afternoon, Sister Chin," she said. "My son Ho is very sick. He is in the hospital now." "I was just about to go back," Chin gasped and put her hand on her chest. "Oh no, I am so sorry to hear that," she said, pretending to care for it. "He is in a very bad condition," Anita said quickly. "We are trying to save him, but it is serious," Chinny pretended to be sad. "I am so sorry, my dear. Please take this basket of fruits for him," she said, handing Anita a basket full of oranges, bananas, and apples. "He will need fruits to get better." Anita took the basket and said, "Thank you so much, Sister Chinny Ray. God bless you." "Don't worry," Chinny said with a fake smile. "He will be fine. Take care." Anita quickly thanked her again and ran back to the hospital. Anita arrived at the hospital. She saw her husband, Anita, standing by Uche's bed. He looked very worried and shocked. Anita felt scared. "What happened?" she asked quickly. Anita turned to her and said, Lizo's heart dropped." She rushed to her son's side and held his hand. He was still shaking and his eyes were closed. What they didn't know was that Hu was trapped in a nightmare. In his dream, he was tied up and surrounded by evil spirits. These dark spirits were sent by Chin to hurt him and caused him to go crazy. It wouldn't be long before they took his life. Ho was in pain and couldn't escape. AI looked at Anita. "This is not a normal sickness," he said. "We need to do something." Anita knew they needed to pray. "We need to pray," she said. So Anita and IE started praying for their son. They prayed and prayed. and they didn't eat or drink for 3 days. They fasted and prayed, asking God to help Hoo-ha and send away the evil spirits. On the 3rd day, as they were praying, Hoo began to shake even more. He screamed loudly, "Mama, Papa, help me," and Ede cried out, "Hold on, my son, you will be free." Then something strange happened as they prayed. The evil spirit flew out of Hooch's mouth, a sight invisible to ordinary eyes. Then the basket of fruits that China Ray had given them started to move. One by one, the fruits turned into bats. The bats flew out of the basket and began flying around the room. Anita screamed and grabbed Hooch tightly. Anita grabbed a broom and tried to chase the bats away, but there were too many. The bats flew out the window and disappeared out of the hospital. Anita screamed. I stood frozen, too scared to move. The room went quiet, but they both knew something very evil had happened. Anita turned to H&E. "Gave us those fruits," she whispered. "I think she did this to Ho." A nodded, his face filled with fear and anger. "We need to protect our son. This is demonic, and we must stop it." They continued praying. They looked at Ho. He was lying quietly on the bed, his breathing now steady. Anita and A knew they had uncovered something dangerous. They couldn't stop until Ho was totally free. After 3 days of fasting and praying, Ho was finally better. He stopped shaking, his breathing was normal, and his eyes were no longer red. The doctors said he could go home. Anita and I were very happy as they left the hospital with Ho. Anita said, "We should have prayed when the doctor told us to. God saved our son." "Yes," I said, holding Hooch's hand. "We thank God for his help." They drove home feeling grateful. Anita kept looking at Ho in the back seat, thankful that he was alive and safe when they got home. Something strange happened. As they got out of the car, they heard loud shouting from the street. Anita and I looked at each other, confused. "What is that noise?" Anita asked. They walked closer to see what was happening. A crowd had gathered on the street, pointing at someone. When Anita and I saw who it was, they froze. It was Chin Ray. Shiny was walking in the middle of the street looking very strange. Her hair was messy, her clothes were torn, she was shouting nonsense, she laughed loudly and talked to herself, not making any sense. "She's gone mad." Someone in the crowd said. Anita couldn't believe her eyes. "What happened to her?" she whispered. A shook his head. "This is not a mistake," he said. "The evil she sent to our son has gone back to her." Anita felt shocked and sad at the same time. Chin had been her friend, someone she trusted. But now she saw the truth. Chin had tried to harm her family and God had punished her. "God has fought for us," Anita said quietly. "Yes," A replied. "Let us take care of Hul and leave the rest to heal." Anita nodded, holding Huda close. They walked back into their home. They were thankful that God had saved their son and protected their family from Chin's evil. This story is not to discourage you from enjoying Christmas with your loved ones, but to remind that you should be very careful. Always learn to be very prayerful. Remember, every action has consequences. Always pray before you eat, especially, and bitterness is one of the devil's favorite tool to spoil happy.